Southern Illinois has a rich history of food production. There was a time when the region produced most of the food that local citizens consumed. But over the past several decades, the region's agricultural base was compromised as a result of large-scale growth in other parts of the country. Southern Illinois communities now must depend primarily on the global food system in order to eat. As a result, the infrastructure for local production and consumption of food, including the means of collection, transportation, and distribution, has shrunk drastically. And while taxpayer-funded state and national programs subsidize mega farms to produce grain crops primarily for animal feed, little support is offered to small-scaled growers who produce food for people. It's even more dire for farms using sustainable and organic practices. Southern Illinois, with its rolling hills terrain, warm climate, and longer growing season, has great potential to expand and diversify beyond the existing conventional agricultural model.
When the Illinois Central Railroad came through here in the 1850s, farming was largely just very small scale, a lot of livestock and corn, sort of an Appalachian pattern of cattle raising and some pigs and some corn, and it attracted people who were more entrepreneurial about their farming. And there were early developments, I know in the 1860s, in this region, and particularly Union County, but it also extended into other areas. There was a tremendous amount of truck gardening, and small fruits and vegetables, and also orchards, largely because of the terrain, that it's hilly and with very good soils that are not very amenable to row cropping. They erode very easily. And so orchard and small fruits and vegetables do very well. Small farmers, just with their family labor, or primarily with family labor, would grow a whole succession of market crops. Even the people who were specialized growers of mainly orchard, but also small fruits and vegetables, they would have a whole array of truck and orchard. But they would also have pigs. They would also have their draft stock, which they might or might not commercialize. They would also have probably some dairy. They would definitely have some dairy for home use, whether they commercialized it or not. They would have some beef cattle. And so they would produce out of their own on-the-farm production. Well, by the turn of the century, when you got real refrigerated cars or real ice, being manufactured with electricity, this area had become widely known for its fruits and vegetables.
The first time refrigeration was used on rail to transport anything, it was a load of meat from Armour Swift Company in Chicago. The first time it was used to transport fruits in the United States of America, it was used to transport a load of strawberries on the Illinois Central Railroad in a specialized container that had been developed by a gentleman from Cobden named Parker Earl. And if you go down and look through the history of refrigeration, you'll see a line, 1866, Parker Earl develops his container. If you look at Southern Illinois, we talked earlier about Anna in the Jonesboro area. The history of the railroad is intricately tied with these entire communities. I mean, they exist in large parts as we know them today based on that history with the railroad. Much of the land here was homesteaded to individuals, and the situation was that you got your piece of land in exchange for growing, in many cases, fruits and vegetables that were in turn put back onto that rail system and shipped to Chicago. There was tons of, you visit with old timers, the area was covered up with orchards down here. Johnson County, Pope County, Massac County, Union County, Alexander County. Lots and lots of orchards, lots of apples and peaches that went on trains and went to Chicago. Then with the advent of the interstate transportation system, all bets are off. Now you don't see these large 200, 300 acre orchards that used to be, because their markets are no longer there. I mean, they were growing to put onto the rail, and when that rail market dried up, then they ceased their production practices.
That system really fell apart in the 1950s. When California fruits and vegetables came on, they developed refrigerated trucks that would generate their own cooling. And as the supermarket supplanted the mom and pop grocery store, that system began to disintegrate. And grocery marketing centralized, so Kroger's didn't want to buy from this little grower and that little grower and the other little grower. They wanted major quality that they could, very, very good quality that they could contract ahead on and be assured they were going to get so many tons of tomatoes, so many tons of asparagus, whatever.
It's changed. I mean, you either had to get great big, like a few growers around here have done, where they have their own trucking and they can ship it, they can send it here, there, wherever it might be, or they've got small enough where you do 3 or 4 farmers markets or whatever a week and go direct right there. One way or the other. There's no one that I know that's in between anymore. We used to be kind of what we call in between, and there were some other growers. You either had to get bigger or get out, or get small enough and do the direct marketing.
If they don't like your product, they can dump it. They can dump it, and you don't even get any money for it, and you have to pay the dumping fee
and the freight fee for this deal.
So you paid the freight, you paid the boxes, you paid for getting it in there, you paid for all your production in the field, and you pay a dumping fee for a wholesale market. Plus the money issue. You may not get your money until the end of the season, whereas if you're in direct marketing, you come home with the money.
Definitely those fuel costs have an impact. And when they started talking about last year and the heat of this thing, we were talking about it being, in some cases, $20,000 plus to get a reefer across the country. Well, a reefer will hold 1,000 bushel of peppers. Well, when you start putting $2 a box freight charge on things, it has an impact. I mean, all of a sudden, will I be better off to pay somebody locally to grow these, give them $1 a box more, and I'm still $1 a box ahead? I mean, and so I do think that those fuel charges have a great capacity to have an impact on what will happen in the future. I mean, I think we would all love for it to be $2 gas forever, but it appears apparently that's not going to be the case.
But I think in the scheme of things, it was really California produce and the cheap water from the federal water projects and the bracero labor that could be brought in and the refrigerated trucking and the concentration of marketing in supermarkets, that it was that conjuncture of things that really just erased the ability of our folks down here to compete.
I can remember my grandfather raising vegetables. I can remember my father raising vegetables and selling them commercially. And then I've heard stories about my great-grandfather doing the same thing. And it's been done on this farm now for 100 years. In this town alone, there was 5 commercial farms operating at one time that was sending produce to Chicago or St. Louis. And none of those are here now. We're the only commercial farm now that's supplying any grocery stores at all. And so it's pretty prevalent. My grandfather did it, my father did it, and we did it for a number of years. The first thing we tried to do was sell to Walmart. Walmart was advertising that they were looking for local products, and so we thought that would be a good way to go. That really didn't work out so well, and a friend of mine suggested that we talk to Snooks. Met with the produce manager and the store manager, and they were very receptive to buying local products. If we would have went to Snook's 15 years ago and tried to get them to buy local products, I don't think the reception we would have got would have been near as good as it is now. And I think you have a kind of a groundswell from people that are requesting and asking for local products. The co-op store was our first committed customer, though. That was our first commitment that we got from any store to buy from us.
Co-ops have been around in various forms since at least the mid-19th century, but they saw themselves as distinct from the past and having no real relationship to anyone else. It was, really very much a food for the revolution kind of movement, and so you had a bunch of people who were interested in good food, in changing some of the dynamics around agriculture in the United States. I mean, the co-op is unique as a local business, particularly because it's owned by the members of the community who choose to buy a share in the co-op. So over 2,000 people have invested $100 to become an owner in the neighborhood co-op. And as such, the co-op is uniquely democratic in terms of its control, and thus can support local values and isn't having policy dictated from a corporate headquarters. So the challenges are myriad. I mean, it's just a lot more complicated, requires a lot more time and labor, and is a lot less consistent. It's a hard thing to systematize.
These are our later cucumbers that are coming into production. This has been the hardest thing for us to adjust to supplying grocery stores, having a constant supply, And we're trying to get the thing down where we always have squash, we always have peppers, we always have cucumbers. This is our yellow squash right here, and zucchini squash is coming in. This is some that we're harvesting right now.
Oftentimes we can pick peaches this morning and we are in some other town 50 miles away that afternoon. We market that fresh. For example, a peach that is picked in Georgia or California or Michigan that is going to wind up at Walmart or Kroger or Super Value or Albertsons is picked about 2 weeks too green. So they have to be picked immature for ripeness. And then that peach is put in a cooler for approximately a week, and it allows to undergo a color change, and then it is taken out and graded and sorted and packaged and put into big boxes and put on a truck and taken to warehouses that ultimately may hold them for another couple of weeks, and then they get into the counter at the store. It will never be soft. It will never be as good as what my peach will be. We want to pick table-ready fruit.
It's become a social event for some of these people to go to some of these farmers markets and get out and talk, and then when they come to us and talk, and we joke around a little bit with them, and we get to know them, and it's kind of like an extended family. So, and a lot of the people, the fellow vendors, a lot of those people are just good people that you like being around, and they're trying to make a dime, trying to make, they're living there too. I think that the people like to know, hey, what kind of variety is this, or what'd you grow this, or, they want to know the person that's growing it a little bit. Last year we had the salmonella.
they know how to do it, so they're good at it. And it also gives them a connection to the community that's valued, because you go and you sell your goods and you talk with people and you keep up those neighborly connections. So they really become a focus of community life and of neighborhood networks and place where things happen. I know that's true of the Carbondale market. You go there, and if I don't want to spend 2 hours there, I don't go.
When I go to the farmer's market on Saturday morning, there's hundreds and hundreds of people there, and when I've done some demonstrations out there, I see thousands of people coming into that farmer's market on Saturday morning trying to get fresh as you possibly can. But we are currently involved in trying to boost our local food consumption here in the dining halls. We feed 4,000 students a day, round about 7,000 meals a day in 4 facilities. And we're trying to utilize and buy and get farmers to grow produce and Illinois products, beef and pork, for us to use to sell or to cook for our student population. We want the students to connect to their foods so that they take this on in life and make it, a priority when they, leave college, to try and make local food a priority so that we can build the farming communities back up where they need to be.
I think that there is interest in trying to get more local foods into institutions, be it hospitals or universities or even primary and secondary schools. I mean, I think there is a push to do that. So the resources available underneath the current school funding mechanisms, I mean, they're finite. I mean, in other words, I don't think they have extra money to go out and hire 4 or 5 more people to prep food in the cafeteria.
We're purchasing approximately 30% of our budget within 250 miles of SIU right now. Here we have the unique opportunity to not only feed the up-and-coming generation that'll someday be running this country, but also to influence that same generation.
Who are these new farmers that we're going to have? Are we going to have, young people that traditionally grew up on farms, farming? Are we going to have people who have no experience in agriculture as young people growing up, but then have made a lifestyle choice to become farmers? You have these urban farmers. You have immigrants from all over the world coming into the United States wanting to be farmers. So I think we're going to see a lot of shifts in terms of who, the new face of agriculture. Women, we have more women farmers than we've ever had now. I think all of those things combined with these social factors are going to change, how we farm. In
a perfect world, we'll have more farmers producing more products so that we can supply the needs of an SIU, and then expand it even to supply the needs of all the universities in the state system, because right now we don't really have enough farmers growing vegetables to supply the needs at the university. It would be a great thing to see that very little of my produce came from outside sources.
Labor is another big issue. It is something that society has to address, and we as a society are going to have to come to grips with who's going to do the work, who's going to feed us. And someone has to do it, whether it is in the slaughterhouses of chickens and beef and poultry and swine and dairies for the milk production, production of fruits and vegetables. The processing of this has traditionally and more is either done by mechanization or immigrant labor, and immigrant labor is a difficult issue that has to be addressed by society.
Well, I've been fortunate this year that other than one person, all the people have worked for me prior to this year. So I'm getting a little spoiled that I come out here and say, hey, I want this done. And I know that guy over there, he's going to be doing it right. It's just going to be done right. The boy that helps us get ready for market, he'll be here later on today. He'll have it right. So we get each person their job and train them, and well, it works pretty good that way.
Specialty crops require high amounts of labor and high amounts of input compared to a commodity crop. And you have to be willing to make that commitment because you're going to be spending a lot more time out in the field harvesting your crop, doing more maintenance of that crop as opposed to what you would do with a corn and soybean crop. And there's specialized equipment that you have to do that as well. But you know, you can kind of get started in specialty crops with the minimal amounts of equipment, and most of the commodity growers probably have most of that equipment that they can kind of utilize to get started into the specialty crops.
During breeding season, July, that's when you don't get out. When they're breeding, that one bull will do 95% of the breeding, probably closer to 98. He'll lose 300 pounds during breeding season. Wow. And he won't be breeding anymore. He'll be standing somewhere by himself because when he loses that much weight, he gets weak. Right. Second, when the pecking order will whip him. Yeah. And out here, they don't discuss it very diplomatic. It's not like sitting in the bar drinking a beer and you're going to fight. Most people, when they cook anything, they've got so used to just throwing something on and cooking it fast, they don't appreciate the flavor of the meat or the taste. And with buffalo, when you go to cook it, I'd say at least 50% of people burn it the first time. When you cook a buffalo burger, don't mash that burger. It drives me crazy. All the little calves in there, the little orange animals, they've been born since the 1st of April. They stay that color orange for about 12 weeks.
Right now I'm marketing as locally as possible. I sell to the neighborhood co-op in Carbondale, Town Square Market in Carbondale. Some of my products are at Arnold's Market. I supply the Fat Patties, which is a burger restaurant in Carbondale, Yellow Moon Cafe in Cobden with their beef. And then I also do the Carbondale Farmers Market every Saturday. We raise 100% grass-fed and finished beef that's without the use of antibiotics, growth hormones, chemical fertilizers, pesticides, or herbicides. We don't feed any grain whatsoever. The whole notion of you are what you eat, well, you are what your animals eat too.
There's a farmer in central Illinois, in Atlanta, a little town in Atlanta, Dave Bishop, who when you talk to him and ask him about how he defines himself, he says, I'm a healthcare provider. He sees his role as providing healthy food for people and sees that as, you know, a really important part of what he does. So he's not talking about the production side of it. He's talking about more of the social impacts of what he does. Although he needs to be profitable to stay in business, and he's an organic farmer, so the environmental concerns are really important to him too. So, you know, we have a need to grow food, and like you mentioned, the healthy food, you know, for communities, environmentally, people need to make a profit, and then we need to be, you know, healthy.
You know, people like me who are trying to do the right thing, give the consumer a high quality, wholesome product. But you have big corporations that are finding loopholes in the system, and they're trying to make it hard for the little guy to actually compete in the global market. Some of the barriers that I'm being faced with in trying to get the product to the consumer, are the processing facilities in the state of Illinois. Their processing facilities are becoming more, they're few and far between. There used to be a butcher or processing facility in every small community in the state of Illinois, but due to rules and regulations, economies of scale and economies of size, these larger processing facilities have made it harder for the smaller processors to be able to compete and made it, more expensive.
We had the opportunity during this past winter to buy an old grocery store that was here in the village of Pulaski. And it had operated as a grocery store for, I really don't know how long, my entire life. As far as I can remember, there's been a grocery store there. And we went in after we bought it and started rehabbing it more to the historic appearance that it once had. And we're pretty proud of the way it turned out. It's been better received than what we ever dreamed it would be. We knew the poverty rate was high here. We knew there was a lot of people that didn't have jobs and that the employment opportunities are pretty limited. And so that was the driving force, I guess, to getting the link machine put in there. My wife is the one that went through the process of actually getting us approved for it and getting it put in and getting it up and working and everything else. And she started the process probably a couple months before we opened, and the machine was finally delivered and installed the day before we opened. So we run a little classified ad in the local paper, and that's at the bottom of all of our classifieds that we do accept link cards, and we're able to sell all of our vegetables or our pork products and the canned goods we have with and accept link cards for them.
In the work that I do and working on different projects and local food initiatives and stuff, we kind of figured out that when people just go to the grocery store to use their link benefits, they tend to buy potato chips and pre-processed foods and stuff like that. And if we were going to be offering locally grown vegetables that are healthy and good for people, we wanted people that had the link benefits to be able to come in and buy those products to help them, be able to get a locally grown, fresh product that they couldn't get otherwise with those, and without having those benefits available to them.
I think the consumers are starting to realize that local production is kind of producing those vegetables that are higher nutrition, fresher, better tasting than what's being shipped in from distant farmers' fields from 1,500, 2,000 miles away. So local production is one of those things for specialty vegetables that they were really wanting us to provide more to them of.
Okay, great. Perfect.
I think local production is going to kind of increase in the next 10 to 15 years, and it's kind of hard for me to predict and kind of see how things are going to kind of move and what they're going to how things are going to kind of shake out, if they're going to get a central distribution system and be able to hit into more of those larger markets, because I consider St. Louis like a local area because it's only 2 hours away, and if we could kind of somehow get into that market system a little bit, and with one of the larger grocery market chains in the area is Snooks, and they're all over the St. Louis area as well as in Carbondale, I think that's a way for growers to kind of start marketing their products instead of always just having to go to farmers markets and as well as some of these other direct markets.
I'm from Hollywood, California. We chose to move here. We were looking for a place that had a core population of proactive people on green issues. This long distance thing where a food is grown 5 countries away or across an ocean. It's on a ship, it's on a train, it's on a truck in the hot heat, losing all its nutritional value. I don't like to see that. I like to see the farmer here across the table from the person who's going to eat the food.
Usually we spend around $50 on vegetables, and that's our vegetables, fruits and vegetables for the week. We can almost live off of the farmer's market. Go and get some flour, and we're good to go.
I like knowing that I'm getting everything fresh and from right in the area. And supporting somebody that may support me, because I'm actually a local businessman. I'm a mason, and I have a masonry company, so, you know, I put money in their pockets, they hire me to do something, so there we go.
Yeah, and we find that it's important for our kids to be exposed to this atmosphere early on.
Definitely.
And we try and bring them as healthy and fresh food as possible, and this is the best place in town to get it.
Yeah, even if it's going through mom first.
Well, years ago, we were living in St. Louis. We did a nationwide search for a place to live, and we settled on Carbondale in part because of the farmers market. You know, I do environmental science, and locally grown food is very important to me from a scientific perspective, and we also really enjoy things like, I in particular enjoy buying grass-fed beef from the guy who actually raised it. That sort of thing means a lot to me.
And we also enjoy the local artists who sell their work here, and it's nice to purchase goods from the people who actually make them.
We lived in Philadelphia for a while back in the 70s, and the farmers market was under the Reading Terminal train station in a very bad neighborhood. I was back just a few years ago, and now that Reading Terminal market's still there, and the neighborhood has been redeveloped as an arts center, as a business center, and a place that people really want to live. And we've seen that in all the places that we've lived.
I think there's right now tremendous opportunities. The farmers market system here in Illinois is just booming. It's everywhere. It seems like every little town has a farmers market that's kind of popping up, and more and more people are becoming more interested in local food production. They want something where they can actually put the money back into their local community instead of shipping it off to another community. So try to keep the money in your local system.
I want to be one of the first to market. You get the early market, you get your people get used to coming to you, and you get your little bit of customer loyalty, and you know, early bird gets the worm type of deal. My wife takes care of most of the marketing, especially early, and makes, you know, people come to her stand, I guess is the term to use for market, and she gets a good quality product. They start coming back, and they get used to her corn, and everybody's happy.
And I wouldn't recommend any grower who gets started in special crops to grow a lot of one crop. Make sure you diversify. Diversify, grow lots of small things, find out what kind of fits into your market, where you can sell it. If you're going to a farmer's market, you're selling it off the farm, you're selling it to a local grocery store. Find out what that market wants, and then you can kind of expand it out a little bit.
He mentioned earlier diversification. I mean, you know, if one thing goes bad, okay, you got other things to fall back on. You know, if squash go bad, okay, I got a few cucumbers. They go bad, hey, I got a few tomatoes. I got a little sweet corn, got a few green beans. There's something there. Hopefully, at least one of them is moving good.
In a perfect world, we would have all that up and running, and we'd have more farmers growing vegetables and growing beef and growing pork and growing meat and chickens and eggs and vegetables to sell to Illinois people. So in essence, we're trying to bring back farming communities all throughout the state and build communities through local agriculture. And one of the things that I'm doing here at Southern Illinois is talking to farmers and getting out there and trying to encourage them to grow more stuff so that the university can purchase stuff from people right here in Southern Illinois to feed to our students.
So what we're doing is we're separating these vines like this right here that they'll grow together and stuff. We separate them because when they grow together they get tangled up, and when they get tangled up like that, it doesn't leave enough room for them to grow grapes, and the bunches don't get real big, which makes the weight of the bins when we pick them, it makes them smaller. there's a lot of different jobs to do throughout the year. We prune them, we tuck them, we sucker them, which is taking the side shoots off so they don't get too overgrown. And then just things like combing so they don't get stuck together and they don't misproduce or whatever.
I raise chickens and gather the eggs and sell them in our store. We have a little area where we open the door and they can walk out there and they can eat bugs and all that kind of stuff.
A few today, huh?
When we talk about the family farm, I do believe it's a good thing for kids. There's an excellent discipline that is taught. I've had so many different kids that I've taught that worked on the farm, and I know that I've been used as a job reference for many of those kids, and they're like, well, if they can do farm work, they can do this job. So there's a lot of discipline. I mean, you have to get it done. That field needs to be picked today, not tomorrow. It has to be picked today. Well, you have to get it done. There's no waiting. And so the discipline that you have to do, I think, relates to so many other things in life. And I think in the long run, my kids will be better for it. It has taught me a hard work ethic that very few other places I could have gotten.
For one thing, we would need more farmers growing more vegetables, for sure. We would also need production facilities where we could take these vegetables that these farmers are growing and put them into usable packaging.
Local production is going to increase with demand. Consumer demand has greatly increased. Somebody like me who has a great job, extremely grateful for it. My wife is a nurse. She has a good job. Extremely fortunate in these economic times. We have 3 children. I mean, the concept that we're going to go to Disney World, I mean, that's a joke. It's never going to happen. We don't ever have that kind of expendable income. But, and I don't think we're alone. I think there's a lot of people like that. But when we talk about this concept of staycations, well, what's something that I can do that was nice for my family? Well, you know, by God, there's this guy down here south on 51 that's got the best sweet corn I've ever eaten in my life. This weekend, let's run down and go get 2 dozen ears and we'll have a barbecue. I mean, I think that ties in, if you understand what I'm saying.
The reason the co-op goes through this considerable effort to support local producers is because it's a critical part of our vision and mission as an organization. Starting in the fall of 2002, co-op directors, managers, staff, and owners and members of the community all gathered to try to craft a vision for the co-op going forward, and we called this co-op in 2010. And the resulting document actually has as the very first objective, the primary objective, so to speak, is for the co-op to become the anchor of the local and regional sustainable economy. And towards that end, not only would we be a market for local producers, but we would actively try to expand the market for local producers, that we would try to grow the ability of people in southern Illinois to produce food and sell it profitably. So it's kind of key to our whole organizational outlook.
From my perspective, my absolute favorite thing in the world is raising vegetables, so it has made my life very enjoyable if I can raise something and sell it, and my wife says as long as I break even, I'll keep doing it. But I do love raising them, and so that is the absolute funnest thing for me. Everything else is okay, but the vegetable production is my favorite thing. I think what's hopeful to us is the opportunities that are there for a farmer or a family like ours to do what we love to do and to support our family and to support the lifestyle that we live, which is something that we love very much, is the country life and being able to work for ourselves and produce and sell our product. It's hopeful for people young farmers that want to get into the business and want to start in the business. It gives them a way where they can start with a small acreage and still be able to make a living. The doors that have been opened for local products are really good for us because we see now that we can grow our vegetable business and we can add another revenue stream to our family. We can employ some people in the area. And for a family like ours that wants to raise and produce vegetables and have a diversified operation, we're very grateful that there are people that recognize what we're doing and appreciate the product that we're trying to produce. And it makes us feel good that people go into the stores and look for the local product and try to buy the local product and support us. We appreciate that very much.
You know, what does it take to be in a premium marketplace? Well, it takes premium quality. We've discussed that already.
I'm only here on this earth one time, and I wanted, and we are persnickety about it. We pick a right peach. I want the consumer to come and say they're the most wonderful peaches we've ever eaten in our life.
It is my goal to take my product as direct to the consumer as I can, cut out the middleman. I know that's not always possible, but I like the interaction with the consumer. I like hearing their comments and reactions and hearing their positive feedback to my product. That makes all of the hard work and energy worthwhile.
To me, this whole movement is a really positive thing, and you're seeing examples of it in what's happening with the edible schoolyard. I mean, you're seeing kids getting engaged and involved. You have seniors that are doing community gardening. So to me, this is a really positive thing on many fronts.